Welcome everybody. Welcome to this Facebook episode with Genesis Leadership Trainings. My name is Pablo Murillo, and I am excited to have you here today. So today we're interviewing one of the union labor leaders who is definitely making a difference today for working class and the working people, especially in Los Angeles. His name is Mario Valenzuela, and he is the political director of the political department at UTLA, the United Teachers of Los Angeles. Many of you have heard the name of that union, UTLA. And when you hear UTLA, you know that it's an example of a powerful union, setting the standard for many other unions as to how they bargain, how they organize, and the kind of action that they take. So today I am very appreciative to have Mario Valenzuela here today with us to contribute his time and his leadership experience as we go through our conversations. So welcome, Mario. Glad to have you here. How are you doing today, my brother?
I'm doing good. We're getting ready for the holidays. Glad to be here. I'm glad you're doing this, brother.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So let's get into it, Mario. Give the audience a little bit of your background, because a lot of times we look at leaders, right? A Barack Obama, maybe a Martin Luther King, a Rosa Parks, and people see the leader, but they don't see the background. How did this person become that person? So I think it's important to extract a little bit of what is your background and how did that background plant the seeds of leadership in your life? Can you share with us a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So my background is I'm an immigrant. I am from Chile. I was born in Chile and came here as part of the political exile, fleeing from the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet in Chile. So I arrived here when I was 4 years old. So I was raised here in the United States, and I was very aware of the history of my country, the history of my family. I was very aware that my peoples were tortured and killed, and I was very aware that my parents were both imprisoned during the dictatorship as well. We were one of the lucky families that my parents were released, and we were able to come to the United States. So I think it's with that knowledge, not only of understanding that the atrocities that took place in the dictatorship, but it's also connecting it on the cause and learning, why did we have to go through this? Why did so many folks have to suffer? And it's understanding that it's governments, it is people, it is decisions that are made, it is political, economic interests that are made by governments and by people that created this, right? So even though we had Chileno pilots bombing the presidential palace, they were trained by U.S. military, right? So the financing, the weapons, and the political interests were basically financed and supported and by the CIA here in the United States, right? So understanding that and growing up with that at different stages of my life was challenging, because I didn't understand all the politics, but I definitely understood how I felt about it. I understood how I felt about how this experience impacted my family. So understanding that with time and learning a lot more and digging in a lot more of the causes, the root causes of what happens, and the connection that we have with other countries throughout Latin America, throughout the world, and how that most of our countries are places where the Cold War was fought by the imperial powers, whether it be the United States, the Soviet Union, or anybody else, right? And it comes from a legacy of colonization and mercantilism, capitalism, and et cetera. So putting all those things together and understanding where the pain comes from has really, I think, driven my passion to be involved in a fight for social justice.
Wow. Well, I can definitely relate to some of that experience. And when you hear people here in the United States talk about the immigrant issue, right? The caravans, people coming in and all that stuff, nobody ever mentions what is referred to in writings as the push and pull effect. And what that is exactly what you described, which is there is a force that pushes people out of those countries because nobody wants to leave their own homes. I remember when I left my own country, I didn't want to leave. The same thing for you and your parents, right? But what pushed you out? It was an external force of economic force, military force that was coming from another country, in this case, the United States, taking over your country, pushing you out. And now when you get here, now you're told, go back to where you came from, right?
That's right.
So,
that's right.
so it's very tough, but there's a lot of immigrants who come and they encounter a whole different challenge, right? It's not the land of milk and honey, though there is a lot of milk and there is a lot of honey, just maybe not just for you. And a lot of, I think, immigrants fall into that category of feeling stepped on, and they don't develop that confidence to be able to compete in this market because it is a different world. We have to learn how to be here in the new land. And so I want to ask you, how were you able to build that confidence though? How were you able to basically come and rise up in your confidence level so that you can compete shoulder to shoulder with somebody who probably was born here? What pushed you to keep going?
That's a, interesting question. What goes through my mind when you ask me that is basically just my experience. So growing up, my parents as immigrants, my pops was 40 years old. Imagine going to a foreign country, not knowing the language at 40. I mean, you've already lived your youth and, and your young adult life, right? You're kind of lost. My pops, both of my parents were imprisoned, and tortured. They didn't want to be here. So there was an emotional, visceral reaction to even this experience that my parents had. That said, they had challenges on learning English, filling out tax forms, applications for jobs, etc. So I think as a little kid, I was helping them do tax forms and filling out all kinds of forms.
And
right?
you really have no business doing taxes.
I had absolutely no idea what taxes were, man. I mean, I just tried my best, and I was the interpreter. I was, so because of the need and just that experience, I think that I just had to learn and kind of take on a role as a kid that maybe not all kids should be taking on. Right. So it, I gotta say I had a pretty good childhood though. But with that, the other balance was I was also had to take on some adult responsibilities as well. So I think that experience definitely helped me, I guess, build some level of confidence because by high school, I knew kind of what I was doing, but also, my parents were very strict as well. They're like, hey, if we're in this land of milk and honey, your butt's going to get a good education and make something of yourself. You're going to become some kind of professional because it will accept nothing less, right? So on the one hand, it was the experience on just the roles I was taking. On the other, it was straight up discipline because if I got anything less than a B, I didn't, it was not going to be a good day for me.
If you got anything less than a B, you were not gonna see the next day.
Yeah, exactly. That would be difficult to wake up the next day. Yes. So
no child's right in your home, right?
Yep.
You know what? And that points out to one of the nuggets that I want the audience to extract. A lot of times we say, well, I'm not the leadership type, or I don't know if I can do that. I would love to be more confident. I would like to have more belief. And then a situation comes in where we're forced to take on extra responsibilities. And then when that comes, we say, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to have this situation going on. But if you ask for more confidence, if you ask for more leadership, guess what? That situation is what builds you into that leader, because now you have a new sense of responsibility and you are pushed to perform at a different level. And that's what Mario was pointing out today, right? Some of the extra responsibility that he dealt with actually helped them to become a better leader down the road. So great point on that. So you already answered this a little bit, but I want to still ask for our audience to be able to listen. So when it comes to leadership, many people think of it as this very abstract concept, right? They think of leadership something for the entrepreneur, for the big company builders, for the politicians, for the speakers. And a lot of people see themselves and they say, well, I'm not a leadership type. And I want us to redefine in people's minds what leadership is, right? So I'll give you my basic definition of leadership, which is the decision by an individual to be more relevant in the world around them. That's it. That decision by an individual to be more relevant in the world around them. If you decide that you're going to become a factor in everything that's going on around you, no matter how small or big that is, you are a leader. So in your point of view, though, the way that you live, how has leadership been important for you? How has it impacted you and your life? And, you know, in the person that you have become today?
No, it's interesting that I like your definition of being leader, or at least taking on leadership roles, because I think a lot of times, you know, I don't know if it's because one is humble or not, but sometimes we don't realize that we are leaders, whether we're leaders in the family or leaders amongst our friends, or what have you, right? The leader could be the person that's just organizing the study group, the leader could be the person who is taking the lead on having a party for, right, a birthday party or something like that, or what have you. As simple as as simple as that. I think that oftentimes, man, how is it? Your question is, how has it shaped me being a leader? Because a lot of times you don't realize it, like I said. So you don't realize how it shapes you. But I think that you said something that kind of, that made me think. You're either gonna be the catalyst, you're gonna be pushing and trying to shape your environment and what you're doing, and or you're gonna be shaped by others who do it yourself, right? And oftentimes, because I was forced to kind of grow up a little bit younger and grow up faster, I was realizing that I was that I had that other people's leadership roles or wasn't good enough. I mean, I guess I had to step up and say something. I couldn't stay quiet about something. My pops, I used to always call me, I'm Mr. Argue. You're just Mr. Argue, he would say in Spanish, right? Because I would always demand a reason for something. I'd always demand justification, and push that. So I think that part of being a leader was just trying to be inquisitive, trying to find out the why of everything, and trying to make sure that there was some level of control of my surroundings and my environment, instead of being the product of others.
I like what you said. You're either gonna be shaping the environment, or you can allow others and the environment to shape you. And I think that in your own experience, you have experienced discrimination, racism, limitation, right? And sometimes some of us do succumb to those forces. Like in my early days, right? When I was a younger man, I was very angry. And the environment around me, that's all I saw, my anger. And I was allowing that environment to continually develop me and decide who I was becoming. And at some point I had to take responsibility, like you said. I had to take responsibility that no matter how I had lived or grown up, I had to decide who I was going to become the next moment. And taking back that force and deciding that you're going to shape yourself rather than allowing the environment to shape you, that's part of leadership itself. I think that's a good nugget that I want to point out for everybody. Do you see that?
Yeah, no, and the other part of that as well is, look, just to be clear, even though we want to take control of our environment, we are also affected by our environment. So our ability to assess our environment, to work within our environment, change it, adapt, etc., I think are important characteristics, right, of being able to be that leader, right? We can't just shape it without without the context, without the challenges and the opportunities that are in front of us. So I think there's also some level of hope, right? Because I can say, you mentioned anger. Part of me is still angry. That doesn't ever go away. But we have hope, though. So my level of hope and understanding maybe grows to balance off that anger, right? That anger is still that passion, but it's that hope and that knowledge and experience that helps us that helps us make some change, right? So we just and hopefully with our experiences, we slowly gain the confidence that, hey man, my voice actually does matter.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? And anger, actually, I have a lot of experience with anger. But anger also, this is the thing. We hear this all the time. People saying that you got anger, we just got to channel it in the right direction. And it is so true. Because anger actually, as a level of consciousness, has a level of energy. There's a book by David Hawkins called Power versus Force. Great book to read. And he categorizes the levels of emotional intelligence that we have, or emotional consciousness. And at the lowest level, he says, the lowest level is calibers at level 20. And that is shame. So when you feel in shame, it's really, really low. And people who are in shame become suicidal because there's really nothing left. You have no energy to work with. And at the higher end of the scale is 1,000. That's enlightenment. Okay. Guess where anger falls? It falls at 150. So if you compare somebody who is in shame to somebody who's angry, you have 150 points more to work with when you're angry about something. So as long as you can identify that you're angry about this injustice or that injustice and be able to put work towards dealing with that injustice to make that world better, now you're leveraging that anger and pushing forward. And that's probably part of what you're doing in your leadership.
Right. Well, hopefully that anger or whatever emotion that we feel, because emotions are powerful, give us purpose, right? And that purpose, I think, gives us some hope, or at least a pathway to you know, a pathway to manifest those emotions, you know, in a positive way, right?
Right. That's right. No, that is that journey of leadership, right? I think becoming aware of those emotions, then identifying your values, identifying what you like to see in the world differently, putting work towards that. And that's where the leader, I think, starts coming together, right? Which brings me to my next question. Is leadership something you're born with, or is it something you develop, Mario? Or is leadership something like, hey, let me check out this DNA. Oh, this guy is a leader. This one isn't, right? Does it work like that, or is it something that you develop as you go?
I think that that it's something that that we all can develop. And I think most of us do it. Like I said before, I just don't think we realize it. A leader doesn't have to be the person that stands in front of the room and makes a speech, right? It doesn't have to be the person that's leading a team, right? Sometimes there's, I think that there's a lot of folks that maybe not be as outgoing, right, as others, but they're still leaders. They do some very powerful, meaningful leadership work, right? So I think we just have to understand that leadership and the role of a leader manifests in thousands and thousands of ways, right? So I think that you are not, we're all born to be leaders. We are all born to be leaders. Our environment and our, and our ability and the people around us, our opportunities that we take advantage of, maybe might help us see and acknowledge where we're being leaders and where we're not, right? But dang, look, I'll tell you this. I'll give you a little example. My little 4-year-old, Amaru, and I am not very religious. I'm not religious at all.
No, not very. You're not.
I'm not religious at all, right? But grandma is religious, and and sometimes they, they hold hands. We hold hands and we do some prayer, we do some thankful, whatever, right? So I participate with respect. I think that's an important moment, right? It doesn't have to be religious, right? It's interesting. About a year ago, my boy, without grandma or anybody, because mommy makes the food, we sit down and he said, hey guys, everybody, let's hold hands. Let's hold hands. He had us and me, that I'm not religious, holding hands in front of every meal practically. And he was thank you, everybody. I hope that we can eat this meal together and have fun and be healthy. And I hope everybody is good. That was his prayer, something like that.
There you go.
He led us at 4 years old. He was a leader, man. Right? So, that was just, that was powerful. And that wasn't my practice. But now, because he led me, I'm not only okay with it, but I kind of look forward to him leading us and speaking together, because if nothing else, it's that voice together as a familia that we're sharing, that That's he has brought us together in that moment, which is so powerful.
That's a great example. See, and it's true, I think we are all born to be leaders, we are convinced along the way that we shouldn't be, or we convince ourselves that we shouldn't be. And I always tell my folks, everybody has leadership qualities and it shows up. The problem is that we don't make it a consistent thing. Like him, right? He showed up that quality at that moment. And you're right, that's exactly what a leader is. Became more relevant in the world around him. But if you don't continue to foster that confidence, he may just be told by somebody else or start believing that he's not that type and never have that experience again. And then it's a completely different trajectory, right?
Yep. And that's the crazy thing, because in his mind, he doesn't consider himself a leader. He's just Amaru.
That's right.
Right. So we manifest, just like my 4-year-old did, manifest leadership qualities and take on leadership roles without actually labeling it, hey, I'm a leader or I'm doing leadership things. Right. But
Yeah.
we need to be able to foster. So I think it's really important, the people around, how do we continue to encourage those characteristics? Well, even when we don't know how to label them, or we don't know the science or your cool definition of what a leader is, right?
Right.
You're still manifesting that. We need to learn how to be able to be supportive of each other so we can grow there.
I agree 100% on that one. And my other question, my brother, how do you deal with the fear of leading? One of the biggest challenges that I've learned developing people in 26 years, right, that I've been at it, at least you have about the same amount of years developing others in their leadership. What I've noticed is that the main thing that holds people back is the fear of leading. And that fear shows up in many different forms. Oh, I'm not a leadership type. Oh, I cannot speak in front of people. Or I don't know if I can do that, right? In many different forms. But at the core of it is the fear of failing, fear of nobody's going to listen to me, the fear of nobody's going to follow me. And we all deal with it, because I still deal with it today after 26 years of doing it. I think the difference between somebody like you and I and other folks out there who may be in the beginning of their leadership journey is that the fear they deal with is a huge mountain. The fear that we deal with is just a rock that we have to step over, but it's always there. How do you deal with the fear of leading, Mario? How do you, now that you're the director of one of the top unions in the United States, right? UTLA.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's right. That's right. 33,000 teachers and other educators, right? PSWs, PSAs, nurses, counselors, etc., relying on a political strategy to continually build union power. And you are the captain on that ship. How do you deal with that fear of leading and continue pushing forward, staying positive and focus on your vision? How do you deal with that fear?
That's a great question, because
you like great questions, huh?
none of us, especially me, don't like to admit that we have fear. Just like leadership manifests in 1,000 ways, fear manifests in 1,000 ways too. And it's a very powerful emotion. Even if it's just like, hey, I don't know if I can do that PowerPoint. We're like, I don't want to mess up that PowerPoint, or I don't want to mess up that presentation or whatever, those little things. Or even when there's a big crowd or whatever, and I have to like raise my hand, I'm in the crowd, you get a little nervous, even though you have a good question or whatever, right? So fear manifests, and fear is okay. Fear is an emotion that drives us, to be better. Because if I don't fear that I'm not, if I don't have a small level of fear, well, then I'm not going to be better. I need to be able to drive beyond that and make sure that, okay, if I'm afraid, then it comes from somewhere, and let me be prepared. Let me do my stuff right. Let me consult with people that I care for and that I trust in this. If I do have, if I do have some concerns. So I think what's important is that you're never a leader by yourself, right? Some folks like to say a leader has followers. Well, look, I think a leader creates leaders. I think a leader knows other leaders and is supported by other leaders, right? And acknowledges that we're not in this world by ourselves. We can't do anything by ourselves. So I think the most important thing is to have a support network, even if it's just 2 or 3 people or just one person. Know who to trust. And build those relationships, because I think it's in organizing. When we build power, we talk about building power through organizing, one person at a time. We feel more power when we're organizing. Organizing is about building relationships at its most basic level. So what relationships do we have with ourselves and with others around us that will help us get through those tough times? right? I have realized, for example, that, hey, I've been in organizing and labor and community organizing since 1995. So yeah, that's 26 years. Yeah, we're right there, right? And those experiences got me to where I'm at. But now, as the director of, and just to be clear, it's the Political Action and Community Organizing Division, not just political department, right? But that said, being an organizer is not the same as being a director, as being a manager. I have to be honest. Sometimes I am nervous about me being a manager because I can't just organize. I'm leading other powerful leaders and organizers that will put me in check in a second. So I have to have, I better be prepared. I bet, as prepared as I can be, right? So, dealing with the fear, I'll tell you, you have those important people. For me, the most important person is my wife, and she provides me the support, the reflection, and sometimes better ideas than I have in order to implement, right? And you learn from your kids, you learn from everybody around you. So we need to be willing to be open to learn from those people around us.
That's a good answer. I like that answer. So leadership is about building that network, right? But also leadership is about building that sense of belief that you can build that network and that you can go forward and fail and then build again to keep going and be better, right? So that belief is also part of that experience. And I wanted to point out that as leadership develops within us and we aspire and get to higher levels of leadership, then we have to learn how to look from a different perspective, like you were pointing out. I remember when I was a supervisor in one of the unions, I couldn't just think as an organizer, right? I had to have that 10,000 feet view looking at the organizers that I was managing to develop them rather than me going in and doing the work for them. So it's a different balance, you're right. And I wanted to say also about women, you're right. And this is something that I wanted to go in history, in record. The best example of leadership is womanhood, motherhood. When we talk about leadership, right, we always talk about serving, going forward without knowing how to do it, failing and getting up and doing it again, putting your everything into somebody else. What is more congruent with that than motherhood, right? A woman that doesn't know what to do with that little thing that comes out of their bellies, and now they have to raise this kid, and they do it every day without knowing how to do it, because last time I checked, there's no manual that comes with those babies, right? And then they build these little girls into women, little boys into men with real unconditional love, which is really what leadership is. If the world would take a little note about the motherhood as a blueprint for leadership, the world will be in a whole better place, right? So I agree with you with that. My wife is the same way. She
definitely, I think that's right. Huh? I think that's right, brother. I think you're right. I mean, anytime that you have a role where you actually believe in it, you have unconditional love for that purpose that you have, then being a leader or overcoming your fears is much easier, right? But there has to be a strong belief. There's a lot of folks that take on that they're a manager of a job that their heart's not into it, so their approach is not very productive. They're not building other leaders, right? They're just going through the motions, right? So in the ideal world, if we find a role or a job or anything that we actually really believe in, then we're vested emotionally much deeper, right? And that purpose is that guides us even that much more strongly.
That's right. I agree. And I just downloaded a message about that very same topic on my app, which I'm actually gonna do a plug here. I have an app that you can download now. It's called Confidence Builder by Genesis. Genesis spelled with a Y. See that? Like that. Yeah, Y-E-N-E-S-I-S. Confidence Builder by Genesis. And I do tackle that topic because there's something called sexual transmutation, written by Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich. And anyways, I expand on that, but the message is that if you can find that intersection between something that you love and what you do, that intersection, that's the power of your leadership. You can find that.
So maximize it. That's right. That's right.
That's right. Well, my brother, I appreciate you so much for being here today. You're one of the leading union leaders right now in this country, leading one of the most powerful unions in the United States, setting the example of what a union should do, how a union should fight, and how a union should stand up for their members and the working class. Because the problem with most unions right now, I think, is that we always think of in silos. It's about our membership, and it shouldn't be. It's about the working class. It's about the idea of having workers get what they're supposed to receive at the end of the road when their retirement gets there, or during the times that they're helping the employer to become more prosperous, to be able to share in that prosperity. And I think that you are one of the leaders in the union movement right now that is leading by example. I have known you for 26 years actually, right? And I've always known you to be somebody who leads by example, works hard, is always on, always thinking about how to be better. And I think that you're a prime example of the leadership that we need in the labor movement today. So I appreciate you much being here. Any last words that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Thank you, brother. I mean, I think that's, just to add a couple to my other additional 2 cents to what you said, I think that it's, beyond just the working class, it's about our common good. It's about our communities, man. It's about our familias. I think that every person is a worker. Not every person has the ability or even the legal right to have a union, but everybody works. Your example of mamas, they don't have a union, and they're the hardest workers, that we have on earth, and developing, and growing our tomorrow, right? And so what we do together to strengthen ourselves as individuals, as familias, as communities is going to be really important. And I think that that when we talk about labor unions, we also talk, here at UTLA, we also talk about community organizing and how we empower the parents and the students. How do we empower the communities in order to leverage politics in the right way? Because right now what's happening with politics, electoral politics in this country and in most countries is not very good. We have some hope. Chile just elected Gabriel Boric, which is a very progressive, community-oriented presidential candidate in Chile. So there is still hope in the youth. There's still hope because our youth and our women are leading us. They are leading us. Going back to leadership, it is the youth that needs to continue to lead, and we hopefully could, as young elders or older elders, hopefully can share our wisdom and our support, so we can make this a better world for all of us. Anyways, right. Yep. That's about it.
Thank you for being here, my brother. For all of you out there listening to this interview, I hope that you extracted some of these leadership nuggets from real life experiences, from real leaders in the trenches right now doing the work. So go to the Apple Store or the Google Store and download the app, Confidence Builder by Genesis, and start digging into the content in there because it's full of nuggets of leadership, concepts, etc. For those of you who are going to get it soon, it's going to be at a very, very low introductory price. But later on, as it gets more popular, you know what happens, right? So anyways, thank you for being here, my brother Mario. This is Pablo Murillo from Genesis Leadership Trainings. See you at the top, where the champions belong.
Thanks for what you do, brother. Go, everybody.